Stop resisting, girl." Leah Brown froze on the front porch of Brookside Estate. The cold stone bit through her bare feet as Officer Ryan Cooper yanked her backward by the arm. Her crop top pulled tight across her shoulder blades, the thin fabric twisting in his grip. His voice cut through the quiet neighborhood like a knife. "I said stop moving. I live here," she gasped, trying to breathe. "You're hurting me." But he didn't stop. His arm locked around her chest from behind, pressing the air out of her lungs. The porch light shone across his uniform, the badge glinting as if it gave him permission to do whatever he wanted. From across the street, a curtain moved. Mrs. Harris peeked through her window, phone in hand, her lips moving but her feet not. Next door, Mr. Thompson stood on his porch, whispering to someone over the phone, his eyes fixed on Leah like she was guilty of something he couldn't even name. Leah's necklace slipped from her neck. The silver charm, a small heart her late mother had given her, hit the steps and bounced once before landing near the officer's boot. When he shifted his weight, the heel pressed down. The sound of metal cracking felt louder than his voice. Tears welled in Leah's eyes. Not from pain alone, but from shame. She wasn't in some dark alley. She was in front of her own house. Her father's house. The one he built brick by brick after years of struggle. And still, here she was treated like a trespasser. "People like you don't belong here," Officer Cooper spat, tightening his hold. His breath carried the smell of coffee and anger. "What are you really doing here, huh?" Leah's voice broke. "I told you, this is my home." He twisted her wrist higher, the metal of the cuffs biting her skin. "Yeah, right. I've heard that one before." She cried out, her body trembling. "Please, please let go. You're making a mistake." But the word mistake meant nothing to him. He saw only what he wanted to see. Down the driveway, headlights flickered through the trees. A black sedan slowed near the gate. Marcus Brown stepped out, tall and calm in his gray suit. He had just returned from an evening meeting downtown. For a second, he thought he was seeing things: a police car in front of his gate, red lights flashing against the white walls of his home. Then his eyes focused, and the world around him seemed to stop. On his front porch, his only daughter was bent forward, hands cuffed behind her, a uniformed officer pressing her into the stone pillar. Marcus's breath left him. His leather shoes scraped the gravel as he started forward. "Hey!" His voice came deep, commanding. "What do you think you're doing to my daughter?" Officer Cooper didn't turn around. He only shouted, "Stay back, sir. This is police business." Leah twisted her neck, tears streaking down her face. "Dad, I can't breathe." Marcus's pace quickened. "Let her go. Now." The officer finally looked back. His eyes narrowed when he recognized the man walking toward him, tall, dark-skinned, confident. He almost scoffed. "You her father?" he asked. "Then you should teach her to respect the law." "The law?" Marcus's tone grew low and steady. "You're standing on my property assaulting my child." Officer Cooper sneered. "Then tell your child not to act suspicious." She looked like she was trying to break in. Marcus took another step. That's because she was unlocking her own door. Around them, the quiet neighborhood began to hum. More lights flicked on. More faces appeared in windows. Some started recording, but none stepped closer. Marcus stopped just short of the porch. His fists clenched, veins showing through his sleeves. He wanted to pull the man off her, but he knew one wrong move could make things worse. Leah's breathing grew sharp and quick. "Dad, please." The officer jerked her upright again, his grip digging into her arm. "You people always play the victim," he muttered. The words cut deep. Marcus's mind flashed back years to the nights he worked double shifts, to the names he was called climbing his way to success, to the promises he made that his daughter would never face what he had faced. And yet here it was again, in front of their own door. He glanced up. A tiny red light blinked above the porch. One of the house security cameras. It was watching everything, every shove, every word. "Lee," he said quietly, "look at me." She turned her head slightly, her eyes wet but focused. He nodded once, slowly. "You'll be all right." Then he pulled his phone from his pocket. The screen glowed with the security app connected to every camera on the property. One tap and the feed came alive. Clear, steady footage of Officer Cooper's hands on his daughter, the crushed charm under his boot, the hatred in his words. "Officer," Marcus said evenly, "you might want to let her go. Don't tell me how to do my job." Marcus lifted the phone higher, the recording visible on the screen. "You're being filmed. This is my home security system. It's all saved." For the first time, the officer hesitated. The grip on Lee's arm loosened just a little. His eyes darted toward the red light. Behind him, another sound rose, the distant wail of approaching sirens. Another patrol car was turning into Maplewood Heights. Marcus didn't smile. He didn't move. He simply said, "You called for backup, right? Good. Let's see what they think when they arrive." Lee took a small breath of air. The night wind brushed her face, carrying the smell of cut grass and rain. Somewhere deep inside her chest, a spark of strength flickered. The second police car rolled up, headlights sweeping across the yard. Two officers stepped out. They paused when they saw who was involved, the city's well-known businessman standing on his own porch, his daughter cuffed, and another officer gripping her arm. Marcus turned his phone screen toward them. "This is the live feed. You can see what's been happening here for the last 5 minutes." One of the new officers swallowed hard. "Ryan, what is this?" Officer Cooper's jaw tightened. She resisted. "Did she?" Marcus asked softly. "Or did you just not like the idea that she belongs here?" The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush the night air. Even the neighbors stopped whispering. Lee stood there, trembling, wrists still bound, tears drying on her cheeks. The broken charm glinted under the porch light like a small moon. Marcus stepped forward slowly. "Take the cuffs off my daughter." The younger officer obeyed, moving carefully to unlock them. The metal clicked open, and Lee's arms dropped weakly to her sides. Marcus caught her before she fell. Officer Cooper started to speak, but the new officer raised a hand. "Ryan, we need to talk. Step aside." Marcus guided Lee toward the doorway, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. She pressed her face into his chest, her voice barely a whisper. "I thought he was going to kill me." "I know," Marcus murmured. "But you're safe now." Behind them, the flashing lights painted the white walls of Brookside Estate in red and blue. Neighbors stayed glued to their windows, watching the story unfold like a movie they didn't deserve to witness. Marcus looked back once, his eyes cold. "You broke her mother's necklace," he said to Officer Cooper. "You'll answer for that and everything else." Lee knelt, picked up the crushed charm, and held it in her palm. She didn't cry this time. She just stared at it, silent. Inside the house, the cameras kept rolling. Outside, the wind carried a quiet question through Maplewood Heights, one that no one dared answer yet. How many times must the truth be seen before it's finally believed? The night at Brookside Estate had not ended. Even with the flashing lights fading and the new officer standing uncertain, the air still felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. Lee sat on the edge of the porch, the crushed silver charm lying in her palm. Her wrists still bore the faint marks of the cuffs. Her father stood beside her, one hand on her shoulder, silent. He didn't need to speak yet. His silence said everything. Inside the gate, Officer Ryan Cooper stood stiff, trying to defend himself. "I was responding to a call," he said sharply. "A suspicious person near the property. How was I supposed to know she lived here?" The younger officer, the one who had removed Lee's cuffs, kept his gaze low. "Ryan, you didn't check her ID. You didn't ask a single question. You just grabbed her." Cooper snapped back. She looked out of place. "That's reason enough." To Marcus turned slowly. "Out of place?" His voice was calm, but the weight of it made everyone stop. "You mean out of place because of her skin?" Cooper's jaw worked. "Don't twist my words." "I don't have to," Marcus said quietly. They were clear. No one moved. The neighbors still watched through their windows. Some had put their phones down, guilt starting to creep into their faces. The truth was no longer one man's word against another's. The truth was on video. Marcus lifted his phone again. "Everything you said is recorded." The cameras caught every second. The words, the shove, the necklace. You called her, you people. That's what the world will hear. For a moment, even Cooper looked uncertain. His authority was cracking. He turned toward the patrol car as if it might protect him, but it didn't. The younger officer took a step forward. "Ryan, I'm going to have to report this." "Report me?" Cooper's face darkened. "I've been on the force for 15 years. And tonight you forgot what the badge stands for," Marcus said, his voice cutting through the air. "It's not a weapon. It's a duty." Lee finally spoke, her voice low but firm. "You said people like me don't belong here." Her eyes glistened in the porch light. "This is my home. My mother planted that tree. My father built this house. What made you think I didn't belong?" Cooper said nothing. His mouth opened, then closed again. No answer came. The distant hum of another vehicle approached a dark SUV. When it stopped at the gate, two senior officers stepped out. One of them was Captain Ellis, the district's commanding officer. The younger patrolman quickly explained what had happened, his words tumbling over themselves. Captain Ellis turned toward Marcus. "Mr. Brown, I'm sorry for what you and your daughter experienced tonight. I can promise this will be handled properly." Marcus gave a small nod, but his eyes stayed fixed on Cooper. "Handled properly means what, Captain? A few days of suspension? A press release?" His tone didn't rise, but the hurt behind it was clear. "Because this isn't just about what he did to my daughter. It's about how easy it was for him to believe she was a threat." Lee looked up at her father, her voice trembling. "He crushed Mom's necklace." Captain Ellis glanced down at the broken charm. "We'll include that in the report." "No," Marcus said. "You'll include everything. The body cameras, the house footage, the words he said. The world deserves to see it all." The captain nodded slowly. "Yes, sir." He turned to Cooper. "Officer Cooper, you're being placed on suspension pending investigation. Hand over your weapon and badge." For the first time that night, Cooper's confidence vanished. He looked around as if searching for someone to defend him, but no one moved. Even the neighbors who had watched everything stayed silent. The same people who had judged Lee moments ago now couldn't meet her eyes. Lee stood, holding the crushed charm in her palm. "You said I looked suspicious. But you didn't see me. You saw what you wanted to see." Her voice cracked on the last word, but she kept speaking. "You didn't just break my necklace. You broke something that can't be replaced, my peace." Marcus stepped closer, his hand resting gently on her back. "Let's go inside, Leah." As they turned toward the door, the sound of the officer's handcuffs clicking echoed behind them. Cooper's wrists were now bound the same cuffs he had forced on her. It wasn't revenge. It was reflection. Inside the house, Lee sank onto the couch. Her hands shook as she looked at the charm again. "Mom gave me this the day before she died," she whispered. "She said it would remind me of who I am." Marcus sat beside her. "And it still does. That man couldn't take that away. No one can." For a while they said nothing. Only the ticking clock filled the silence. The storm outside had stopped, but the heaviness inside still lingered. Marcus finally spoke. "Do you remember when I used to tell you about the old days? How I was stalked 3 times on my way to college? How I promised myself you'd never go through that?" Lee nodded weakly. "You kept that promise as long as you could." He sighed. "I thought money would protect us. I thought respect would build walls high enough. But it doesn't. Not when people like him still see color before they see a person." Lee leaned against his shoulder, her voice breaking. "Dad, will it ever change?" He looked at the camera feed still open on his phone, replaying the moment when the truth turned. "It already has, Leah. Because this time, the world will see." The next morning, the story spread. The footage from the Brown family's cameras reached every news outlet in Millstone City. The image of Officer Ryan Cooper restraining Lee on her own porch was played over and over again. Comment sections filled with anger, shock, and tears. For once, no one could twist what had happened. The evidence spoke for itself. Outside Brookside Estate, flowers and letters began to appear along the fence. People from across the city came just to say they were sorry. Others came to thank Marcus and Lee for speaking out. But Lee didn't feel like a hero. She felt human, tired, sore, and still searching for peace. That evening, she stepped out onto the porch again. The air was soft, and the tree her mother planted swayed gently in the wind. Marcus joined her, his phone in his hand. "You know," he said quietly, "they're calling you brave." Lee smiled faintly. "I wasn't brave. I was scared." "Courage isn't when you feel nothing," he said. "It's when you stand even while shaking." She looked down at the charm, now repaired, hanging from a new chain. "It's not shiny anymore," she said softly. "But maybe that's better. It looks like what I feel inside, cracked, but still whole." Marcus wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "That's how truth works. It doesn't stay clean. It comes through pain." The sun dipped behind the trees, painting the sky gold. For the first time since that night, Lee felt a small bit of calm. The hurt wasn't gone, but something new was growing in its place: strength. As they stood there together, Marcus whispered, "Justice isn't real until it's equal." Lee nodded slowly. "Then, let's make sure it becomes real." And in the quiet of Maplewood Heights, with the cameras still watching and the city still talking, father and daughter stood together, no longer victims, but voices. The world had seen what happened. Now it would have to decide what to do about it.